Hey guys, tonight we travel somewhere hot, sweaty, and extremely social. Ancient Rome. But don't worry, it's not another battlefield or political drama. Nope. Tonight on Sleepy History, we're going inside a Roman bathhouse. And let's be honest, you probably won't last a day in there. It's noisy, slippery, and smells like warm olives mixed with ambition and athlete's foot. You'll be dodging senators, deciphering weird rituals, and trying not to pass out from heat stroke before anyone even explains what a strigil is. Spoiler alert, you're about to find out in the worst possible way. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love knowing where this sleepy little community stretches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing outside a large rectangular stone building just off one of Rome's bustling roads. The afternoon sun bakes the whitewashed walls, and faint plumes of steam rise from behind the arched doorway. A statue of a nymph pours water from an urn beside the entrance. But you know this isn't a shrine. It's a signal. Welcome to the Thermae, the public baths. Everyone from wealthy senators to dusty laborers has probably passed through this very arch. The moment you step inside, the world shifts. The warm, dry air turns dense and humid, like walking into someone's mouth. Your breath slows. Echoes bounce off the vaulted ceiling. Footsteps slap. Voices murmur. Water drips. And every so often, there's a soft splash followed by someone sighing in satisfaction. Or maybe mild regret. You're still fully dressed in your tunic, which immediately feels like a mistake. Everyone else is barefoot and stripped down. Not entirely nude just yet, but you see where this is headed. You shuffle toward the apoditerium, the changing room. It's a large space with niches carved into the walls for storing clothes. Instead of lockers, there are just cubbies. No locks, no privacy. Only a slave or attendant watching over everyone's belongings. You try to pick a corner, one away from the louder bathgoers. A group of old men debate something furiously near the center. One waves a scroll like a weapon. You can't tell if it's about politics or philosophy, but their eyebrows are very expressive. Now comes the part you've been dreading, undressing. You remove your tunic and sandals, folding them awkwardly. You're pretty sure the attendant just raised one eyebrow at how poorly you folded the linen. You clutch your things like you're going on a sleepover and glance around, looking for cues. You place your clothes in a wall slot, then turn around and realize everyone else is naked already. Comfortably naked. Proudly naked. You try to act natural, even as your brain cycles through modern anxieties and outdated gym class memories. A man next to you gives a friendly nod. He's missing 2 teeth, but seems nice. First time? He asks in Latin, and somehow you understand. You nod sheepishly. He pats you on the shoulder and gestures toward the doorway with a knowing grin. You pass through a short corridor. Warm tiles click under your bare feet. The air is getting warmer, thicker. You smell olive oil, warm stone, and something vaguely metallic, like a copper coin that's been left out in the rain. You enter the atrium, a beautifully tiled gathering area where light spills in through a circular opening in the ceiling. The mosaics beneath your feet depict scenes of gods and sea creatures, Neptune riding a dolphin, nymphs splashing in stylized waves, and one very concerned octopus. This is where the bathers linger, chatting, stretching, and mentally preparing for the heat ahead. You're tempted to hang back here, maybe pretend this is enough for your first day. but your new toothless friend gives you a gentle push. "Tepidarium first," he says, warms you up. As you walk into the tepidarium, the warm room, you're struck by the serenity. It's quieter here. The air is moist and pleasantly hot, like a well-behaved sauna. Soft light filters through small, high windows. A bronze brazier crackles in one corner. People sit on smooth benches lining the walls, their bodies glistening with sweat and oil. You take a seat. The stone is surprisingly comfortable, warm but not scorching. Your back presses into the mosaic behind you, which depicts two dolphins doing something suspiciously affectionate. You focus instead on your breathing, letting your pores open and the warmth sink in. A man beside you leans over. "Good for the lungs," he says, tapping his chest. You nod, even though your lungs feel like they're filling with soup. A woman across the room begins rubbing oil into her arms with practiced ease. She uses a small flask hanging from a belt and a curved bronze tool, the famous strigil. You've read about it before, but seeing it in action is intense. She scrapes her skin in long, deliberate strokes, pulling away sweat, oil, and whatever else people carry on their bodies after a Roman summer. The curved blade gleams. She's not shy about it. A young boy mimics her from a bench nearby, only his strigil is wooden. He's clearly new to the technique, wincing every few seconds. You're starting to wonder when someone's going to scrape you with one of those, and how much say you'll have in the matter. You close your eyes for a moment, trying to settle in. The room hums with low conversation and the distant sound of dripping water. A man across the room begins humming a tune, something slow and rhythmic. It could be a bathhouse song or just his way of passing the time. It sounds ancient and oddly calming, but peace doesn't last long. A deep gong echoes down the hall, a signal. Your toothless guide perks up. "Caldarium," he says with a grin that should worry you more than it does. "Ready?" You open your eyes. Not really, but here we go. You rise slowly from the warm bench, your back leaving behind a faint, damp imprint, and follow your guide toward the caldarium. The air thickens with every step, and your feet feel heavier, like they've absorbed some of the stone's heat. As you pass under the next archway, the warmth turns to smothering heat, and not in a comforting way. The caldarium, or hot room, hits you like an open oven. It's not just warm, it's oppressive. Steam clings to your skin instantly, fogs your vision, and wraps around your face like a damp towel that no one asked for. You try to blink your way through it, but it's like swimming with your eyes open in a thick soup made of salt, smoke, and possibly disappointment. The room is glowing faintly from lanterns tucked into wall niches, their flames dancing behind steam-veiled glass. Marble benches line the walls, and in the center sits a large, rectangular hot water pool with more people than water. Some recline against the sides with blissful expressions, others are mid-argument, gesturing wildly, red-faced from heat or politics, or both. You spot a space in the corner and shuffle toward it, the floor beneath you radiating heat. You hiss quietly with each step. No one else seems to mind that their souls are frying like eggs on a skillet. You try to walk gracefully, but it quickly becomes a bizarre tiptoe shuffle that only draws more attention. As you settle onto the stone, your thighs make a soft hissing sound against the heat-polished surface. You glance around and realize no one is speaking anymore, not because of silence, but because they've all decided you're tonight's entertainment. At least 3 men are watching you try not to faint. One nods in solidarity. Another chuckles and turns back to his conversation. Your lungs work overtime, but the air is moist and heavy. Every inhale feels like you're breathing through a wet sponge left in a spice cupboard. A bead of sweat runs down your temple, meets another on your neck, and together they race down your back. You wonder if it's possible to sweat out your dignity. A muscular man seated nearby pours water from a copper ladle over a basin of stones. A sharp hiss rises up, and a cloud of even hotter steam bursts outward. It slaps you in the face like a steamy fish. You gasp, and instantly regret it. That breath scorched the inside of your throat. Your nose runs, your eyes tear up. This is fine. This is probably what the Romans called invigorating. Still, you try to adapt. You close your eyes. Listen. The murmurs, the splash of ladles, and the soft clink of metal against stone form a strange, sleepy rhythm. You count your breaths until someone plops down beside you, dripping wet, and starts rubbing their legs with a coarse linen cloth. A wave of heat and body odor hits you, and whatever mental peace you had evaporates like oil on a skillet. You glance up and admire the caldarium's ceiling. It's an arched dome with faint frescoes barely visible through the mist. Painted vines, curling dolphins, and faded gods chase one another across a canvas of ancient smoke stains. Some historians still argue whether the caldarium was meant purely for health and cleansing or also served ritualistic and even spiritual functions. Right now, it feels like a punishment chamber where your sins are sweat out whether you want them to be or not. A young man nearby is muttering to himself. He taps his fingers against the marble bench rhythmically. You catch fragments, mentions of Julius Caesar, Cicero, and something about terrible oratory. He might be preparing for a debate, or just losing his grip in the heat. Hard to say. Then comes a sharp, metallic scraping sound. You flinch slightly until you realize it's the strigil again. A woman across the pool is methodically scraping her shoulders, arms, and back with the tool, pushing off layers of oil and sweat in neat little streaks. It's almost hypnotic. Almost. Until she rinses the blade by dipping it into the very same water everyone's sitting in. You shift uncomfortably. Your stomach growls a little, not from hunger, but from a creeping sense of betrayal. You begin to suspect the water quality isn't what one would call spa grade. A man at the far end of the room sneezes, a deep, earth-shaking sneeze, and no one reacts, probably because they're all too woozy to care. A few others nod appreciatively, as if sneezing in the caldarium is an art form. The same muscular man from earlier pours another ladleful over the stones, and this time the steam cloud rolls directly toward you. It's thick, overwhelming, and oddly garlicky. You breathe through your mouth and try not to gag. Some Roman diets, it seems, are more present than others. You feel your limbs go a little limp. The marble no longer burns. It just radiates steady heat, like it's slowly cooking you from the bottom up. Your arms are slick with sweat, your legs feel like noodles, and your brain is starting to float. You're drifting. Somewhere in the haze, someone begins humming again. Same tune as before. Maybe it's a bathhouse thing, or maybe you're just going a little soft in the head from dehydration. You attempt to stand. Bad idea. The world wobbles. Your legs buckle slightly before you catch yourself. Your friend, still missing his 2 teeth, laughs. "Time for cold," he says, like he's announcing dessert. He gestures toward another archway, this one with blue tiles around the frame. You brace yourself. You've heard of the frigidarium. You've also heard of Roman soldiers bragging about how the sudden temperature change makes them feel reborn. You have doubts. He walks ahead. You follow, leaving the caldarium behind. You take one last breath of steamy air, like someone smelling a bad decision before fully committing to it. The floor cools slightly as you move forward. You notice your hands are trembling, either from heat fatigue or anticipation of the next round. Your muscles twitch. Your skin tingles. And as you pass under the arch into the next room, a wave of cold air greets you like a slap across the chest. It's time to plunge. You step out of the caldarium with the grace of a melted candle, your body slick with oil, your skin lightly red and steaming like a baked potato pulled from the fire. You half expect applause just for surviving, but the only acknowledgement is a flick of the towel from a passing attendant who doesn't even break stride. The hallway ahead feels like a gift from the gods. Cool, dry air brushes against your skin like a whisper. You inhale deeply, grateful to be somewhere your lungs don't feel like they're being slow roasted. And then you see it. Set into the floor of a wide marble chamber is a rectangular pool. Still, blue, deep. A few bathers stand around its edges, casually chatting, while others, braver souls, clearly, slip beneath the surface without a wince. The frigidarium, the cold room. It's meant to close the pores, invigorate the body, and remind you that you are, in fact, mortal. You approach the edge with cautious optimism. After what you've just endured, anything feels like an upgrade. You dip one toe in. Instant regret. It's not cold. It's glacial. It's the kind of cold that has opinions, that invades your joints, that makes your skin pull away from your bones in protest. Every nerve ending wakes up at once and screams, "Why have you done this to us?" But now there's an audience. A man lounging nearby with a smug smile raises his eyebrow at you, as if to say, "We're watching." You sense the pressure. You must commit. So you do. You plunge, and time stops. The cold is not just a temperature, it's a punch, a full-body betrayal. Your heart skips, then stumbles, then starts pounding like you've been chased by wolves. You want to scream, but your lungs have closed. Your brain short-circuits. Are you awake? Alive? In a new timeline where water has vengeance? You surface with a gasp loud enough to draw a few glances. Someone chuckles. You tell yourself they're laughing with you, not at you. They are absolutely laughing at you. You drag yourself to the edge, breathing like you've just climbed a mountain with your kneecaps. A nearby bather offers a towel, more as a gesture of shared suffering than kindness. You accept with gratitude, bordering on worship. Fun fact, the frigidarium wasn't just a final rinse. It was believed to stimulate circulation, shock the body into wellness, and close up the pores after all that heat. Some Romans even claimed it sharpened the mind. Right now, your mind feels like a frozen sponge. Across the room, two older men are having what sounds like a very intense philosophical debate about stoicism. One of them slaps the surface of the pool for emphasis. The other one doesn't flinch. You admire that, or fear it. You sit on a ledge beside the water, shivering slightly as droplets trace paths down your spine. The marble is mercifully room temperature. Around you, conversations continue. Quieter now. The frigidarium is one of the calmer rooms in the bathhouse, meant for reflection, maybe some soft socializing. The only real noise is the gentle ripple of water and the occasional splash from some overconfident youth diving in with too much flair. And yet, despite the initial trauma, your body begins to stabilize. Your skin hums. Your breath evens out. That terrible, hot, slick feeling from before is replaced by a crisp, light ache that somehow feels earned. Like you've been forged through suffering. or at least steamed and then flash frozen. But of course, peace is fleeting. A group of rowdy bathers enters the room from the far corridor, laughing and dripping with enthusiasm and oil. One of them drops his strigil, which clatters across the floor with the sharp metallic note of incoming chaos. They begin to dive into the pool. Cannonballs, splashing. A small wave sloshes over your foot. And there goes the serenity. Historians still argue whether bathhouses were as chaotic as some accounts suggest, or whether these disruptions were more about specific times of day and social class. Mornings might be quieter, afternoons more rambunctious. Right now, you've walked into the Roman equivalent of a public pool during school break. One of the young men swims up to you, smiling too broadly. "Frigusta excitat?" he asks. You blink. He switches to a thickly accented Latin-English blend. "Cold. Make you strong, yes?" You nod. He laughs and swims away, splashing a poor elderly man in the process. The elderly man doesn't seem to care. He's already halfway through his nap, chin resting on his chest, arms floating gently like seaweed. You glance at a sundial built into the far wall. Hard to say exactly how long you've been here, but your internal clock is starting to feel scrambled, or maybe gently poached. You decide it's time to move. Your joints crackle slightly as you stand. Every muscle complains. The cold has settled deep, and you feel like someone swapped your bones for icicles. A servant offers a fresh cloth to dry off. You drape it over yourself. Modesty long since abandoned. You're past the point of caring. You've become one with the steam, the oil, the ancient sweat of empires. As you exit the frigidarium, you pass under an arch where another group is entering. One of them pauses to stretch, a high kick that makes you concerned for the structural integrity of his hips. He smiles as he notices you limping slightly. "You'll get used to it," he says. You won't, but you nod anyway. Back in the hallway, warm air greets you again, this time like an old friend rather than a tormentor. Your body soaks it in, thawing like bread left too long in the freezer. You shiver once, then shake it off. You've survived the full temperature spectrum of ancient bathing. Hot, cold, hot again, but don't relax yet. The most awkward part is still to come. You turn the corner and re-enter the tepidarium, only to find that your next challenge is not a pool or furnace. It's conversation, and politics, and one very naked senator with way too much to say. You've barely had time to recover from the polar plunge when you're ushered, more like herded, back into the tepidarium, your towel clinging damply to your shoulder, and your dignity hanging on by a single olive-scented thread. The warm air feels luxurious now, almost kind. Your skin loosens again, the ache of the cold pool fading into something tolerable. You think, maybe, just maybe, you're finally acclimating to this strange rhythm of Roman relaxation. Then you hear him, that voice, that booming, rhetorical, performatively casual voice. "I told Marcus, told him, the property along the Tiber would flood. But did he listen?" You look up, and there he is, the naked senator, same one who was lounging earlier like a vacationing sphinx. Now he's upright, animated, and talking with grand gestures that threaten to slap passing bathers. He sees you, locks eyes, and now you're in the conversation. There's no escape. "You there," he says, pointing at you with a toe he's currently exfoliating, using what might be a piece of volcanic pumice. "You look like you understand land values. Tell me, would you buy near the Tiber?" You blink. There is no correct answer. None. Say yes and you're foolish. Say no and you insult his friend Marcus. game is rigged. You stammer something non-committal. Well, I suppose it depends on the season. He roars with laughter. Smart man. A thinker. We need more of you in the Senate. He doesn't mean that. No one in the Senate wants thinkers. You shuffle closer, unsure what the rules are anymore. Social interaction in a Roman bathhouse is like stepping into a cocktail party where no one is wearing clothes and everyone might be plotting to steal your house. A younger man chimes in. I hear the emperor's cousin bought 3 properties on the Tiber. Just saying. Another responds, and lost 2 of them to mold and litigation. They all laugh. You laugh too, mostly because everyone else is laughing and you're hoping laughter is a form of camouflage. Here's something you didn't expect. The bathhouse isn't just a place to clean your body. It's where reputations are built, deals are struck, gossip is fermented, and grudges bloom like mold on wet stone. Historians still debate just how much business was officially conducted in Roman bathhouses, but there's no doubt these places were pressure cookers of politics. Status wasn't worn on clothing here. It was in how you spoke, who you spoke to, and who was willing to respond. And of course, who had the boldness to bring up tax policy while soaking in communal sweat. Across the room, 2 merchants are quietly trading secrets about grain prices. They lower their voices when someone else passes by, then smirk. You catch snippets. Carthaginian shipment, spoiled barley, bribes. You pretend not to hear. Quirky fact? Bathhouses were occasionally used to spread propaganda. Certain bath complexes even had mosaics or murals celebrating imperial victories or ideal Roman virtues. You don't see any of that here. Just one painting of Neptune looking very uncomfortable in a chariot pulled by seahorses that appear to be biting each other. Someone offers you a seat on a marble bench. You take it, mostly to stop your knees from giving out. The senator's conversation has drifted now to theater. He hated the last play. Something about the pacing or the use of Greek masks. He's still exfoliating, now using a sponge on a stick with all the vigor of someone scouring sins off his soul. You glance around and notice how strategic everyone is being. That man reclining with his eyes closed, eavesdropping. That woman casually oiling her elbows, absolutely angling to be invited into the merchant's conversation. That old man snoring in the corner, probably a retired assassin gathering dirt in his dreams. A servant appears with a tray of dates and pine nuts, the ancient Roman equivalent of bathhouse hors d'oeuvres. You nibble politely, though the texture of everything feels like it's been warmed in someone's armpit. The senator eats 5 in a row, pits and all. Suddenly, there's a commotion near the back of the room, voices rising. Someone's raised an eyebrow, which in Roman culture is practically a declaration of war. 2 younger bathers are locked in a passive-aggressive debate over soap? No. Over seating hierarchy. You realize one of them sat too close to a bench, usually reserved for magistrates. Awkward. There's a definite rule book here. Invisible, but ironclad. Where you sit, how loudly you speak, who you greet, how long your eye contact lingers, all of it adds up to a complex social code that you, poor newcomer, are only starting to understand. You shift slightly on your bench, worried you're in someone else's designated zone. The man beside you does not acknowledge your movement. Is that good? Bad? Should you offer him a grape? You decide not to. At some point, the senator tires of speaking and stands, stretching in a way that should be illegal in polite society. To the laconicum, he bellows. You have no idea what that is, but everyone else stands too. You follow because not following might make you look weak or worse, ignorant. As the crowd begins to move, you overhear another whisper. Did you see Gaius's sandals? Knockoffs. Gasp. The social cruelty here is sharper than a strigil. You shuffle down a narrow corridor behind the others, hoping the next room doesn't involve more talking or any more senators. But of course, it does. There's a strange kind of power in being naked, not vulnerable, not exposed, but unbothered. Unfortunately, you do not have that power. Not yet. You thought you were mentally prepared. After all, you knew Roman baths were nude zones. You'd even practiced your poker face. You told yourself, it's just bodies. You have one too. Everyone's equal in the steam. But knowing something and experiencing it are two very different things. You step into the tepidarium, the warm room, which should have felt like a merciful reprieve after the icy betrayal of the frigidarium. Instead, it feels like walking into a nudity convention. There are so many bodies, all shapes, all sizes, all degrees of oiled and glistening. Some are lounging on benches. Others are reclining dramatically on stone slabs like they're auditioning for frescoes. And every single one of them is completely, unapologetically, enthusiastically naked. You hesitate at the doorway, wrapped in a damp cloth that now feels both useless and scandalously revealing. A young boy runs past you with a strigil and no sense of shame. An elderly man is getting a foot rub. A woman, possibly a noble, laughs uproariously as she swats her friend's rear with a rolled towel. You try to move through the crowd without touching anything, or anyone, which is impossible. The room is crowded, the stone slick with oil and steam. You tiptoe like a nervous heron, eyes focused somewhere between the floor and the horizon, trying desperately not to make eye contact with anything anatomically memorable. And then, a voice cuts through the haze. Ah, you must be new. You flinch. A man stands before you, arms outstretched in greeting. He is entirely, defiantly nude, tall, robust, hairy in places you didn't realize could grow hair. He beams at you with the unshakable confidence of someone who once debated Cicero and won. I'm Senator Cassianus, he declares, as if this explains everything. You're from the provinces, aren't you? You nod, uncertain whether to bow or run. Don't worry, he says, slapping you on the shoulder. You'll get used to it. We all do. At first, I was just like you, awkward, reserved, constantly hiding behind urns. He laughs. You do not. The senator proceeds to walk with you, shoulder to shoulder, hip to very uncomfortably placed hip, through the warm fog of the tepidarium. He gestures to everything like a man giving a tour of his private estate. These frescoes were painted by my cousin's lover's son. Terrible with money, excellent with pigments. He chuckles again, then stretches his arms overhead in a way that should be illegal in public. You make the grave mistake of glancing sideways. Why did you glance sideways? You refocus on a crack in the tile floor and consider falling into it. Around you, the bathers continue their routines with easy familiarity. Two men are oil wrestling near a fountain. A young woman is braiding another's hair with flower petals. A philosopher reclines in a very suggestive pose while explaining the ethics of sponge sharing. The senator, meanwhile, has launched into a political monologue. Grain levies are a joke, he says. Rome could feed all of Sicily if the bureaucrats weren't so obsessed with quota parchments. You nod politely, attempting to stay engaged, while also pretending that you're not very aware of the senator's anatomy shifting with every passionate hand gesture. He continues, and don't get me started on the aqueduct contracts. Nepotism, pure nepotism. I told Calpurnius, if his nephew wants a commission, he should at least know which end of a strigil goes where. You emit a strangled laugh. The senator beams, clearly taking this as camaraderie. At some point during this rant, you realize you've subconsciously begun clutching your towel like it's a shield in battle, which makes you stand out even more. No one else seems to care. Everyone is comfortable, confident, free. Even the awkward teenagers with unfortunate tan lines strut like demigods. A man with a stomach that defies gravity lounges like an emperor. A woman with scars across her back walks tall, laughing like she owns the sun. It's disarming. Here, bodies aren't judged. They're just bodies. And in a strange way, that's what unnerves you most. The complete, effortless normalcy of it. How the human form in all its oddities is treated not as something scandalous, but simply there. Senator Cassianis snaps you out of your reverie with a hearty slap on the back. "Don't look so tense," he says. "Modesty is a virtue, sure, but so is comfort. Rome isn't shy. Rome is proud." He points at your towel. "That thing's just going to fall off anyway. Better to own it." And with that, he strides off into the mist, still ranting about fish sauce tariffs, utterly naked, utterly free. You stand there, unsure. Then slowly, you loosen your grip on the towel, just a little. You sit down on the edge of a marble bench. The warmth seeps into your bones. The stone is smooth beneath your thighs. You breathe, in, out. Nobody's staring. Nobody's laughing. And somehow that's worse, because it means this isn't abnormal. It's just Rome. You look around, at the frescoes, the steam, the bodies, the chaos and calm existing side by side, and you begin to understand nudity here isn't about shock or sensuality. It's about shedding artifice. Politics aside, Rome likes its truth, visible. Even if that truth involves back hair, uneven tans, and the senator's extremely unfortunate birthmark shaped like the letter M. You close your eyes. Tomorrow, maybe you'll walk in here with your head held high and your towel draped loose like everyone else. But for today, you'll settle for not running away screaming. Progress. The tepidarium should be safe. It's the warm room, the one meant to ease your body between extremes, not scorch it, not freeze it. Just cradle it. But as you step inside, feet slick against polished marble, you realize that while the temperature might be mild, nothing else about this room is. You barely take 3 steps before you almost wipe out on a sheen of water and oil. You flail, arms pinwheeling like a sleep-deprived flamingo, barely catching yourself on the edge of a bench. The man beside you, utterly relaxed, stark naked, and smelling faintly of rosemary oil, chuckles softly. "Careful," he says. "The floor claims a few every day." You nod sheepishly, pretending this is all part of your plan. But your embarrassment is short-lived, because now you have company. And not just anyone, it's the senator. Again. He's somehow found you, possibly materialized from a cloud of eucalyptus vapor, and immediately begins talking at a speed that suggests he hasn't had a good listener in years. "Ah, there you are," he booms, settling beside you with the practiced ease of someone who owns the marble. "Tell me, do you believe Gaius Plinius was right about the volcanic vents in the Alban Hills being the breath of the gods, or merely a sign of poor city planning?" You blink. You're still trying to remember how to sit without sliding. Before you can mumble a diplomatic response, another man, this one draped in a towel like it's a toga and he's starring in a one-man play, joins the conversation. "Oh, come now," he snorts. "Everyone knows Plinius was a pompous fool. The vents are a warning, not a gift." And suddenly you're trapped. not in heat or cold or awkward nudity, but in conversation. This is the real danger of the bathhouse. The floor might be slippery, but the politics, much worse. The men here speak in riddles, half-truths, and very public secrets. Someone casually mentions a grain shortage in Ostia, and another raises an eyebrow so sharply you think it might cut glass. A third murmurs something about a certain magistrate's wife being too familiar with her husband's clients. It's all very casual, very whispered, and very, very dangerous. You're not sure if you're supposed to contribute. One wrong comment, and you could accidentally suggest someone's cousin is a traitor, or that you support a building project that siphoned public funds, or, gods forbid, that you prefer Greek wines over local vintages. So you nod, smile, occasionally mutter, "Interesting," and, "Quite right." You're basically a bobblehead in a steam cloud. The senator gestures broadly at one of the attendants. "You know, I told old Lucius that placing the aqueduct outlet near the latrine chamber would cause nothing but problems. Did he listen? No. And now his daughter is coughing up sulfur. Everyone chuckles, including a man who hasn't spoken until now. He leans over and whispers, 'Lucius's daughter has asthma. Has nothing to do with sulfur.' Then louder he adds, 'But of course the senator is wise as always.' You stare at him and he winks. Passive-aggressive praise. The national pastime of the tepidarium. This place isn't just a bathhouse. It's a courtroom, a senate, a stage, and you're the newest cast member in a never-ending soap opera where everyone is shirtless and vaguely threatening. Someone nearby drops a reference to the Lex Papaya Popea, a law meant to encourage marriage and childbearing. It turns into a debate about declining morals and whether love matches should be banned outright. You hear someone mutter, "Ah, but his third wife was a flute player." And the entire group nods in solemn understanding, as if that explains everything. Fun fact, Roman bathhouses weren't just hygiene centers. They were social hubs, newsrooms, rumor mills, and arenas for soft diplomacy. If you wanted to rise in politics, half the work happened right here, in towels, not togas. You realize too late that the floor isn't the only place to lose your footing. "Where do you stand on the temple renovations?" the senator asks suddenly, turning his full attention to you. You freeze. You don't even know which temple he's talking about. Is this a trick? A loyalty test? A bored man's attempt to see if you'll embarrass yourself? You begin, stalling for time. "I think the columns are quite symmetrical." The group goes silent. You hear water drip somewhere in the background. Then the senator laughs. Not a chuckle, a full, booming laugh that echoes off the damp walls like thunder in a canyon. "Ha, symmetrical," he says. "That's the best answer I've heard all week." Relief floods your system so hard it makes your knees buckle. Crisis avoided, for now. But as the conversation swirls into the next topic, someone's cousin caught betting against a chariot team he publicly sponsors, you quietly begin to inch your way toward the edge of the group. A young man slides into your spot before you've fully vacated it. He launches into a speech about how moral decline began when public orators stopped quoting Homer. You take the opportunity to vanish into the steam. Historians still debate just how political Roman bathhouses truly were, whether these conversations had real consequences or were just ancient small talk with inflated egos. But one thing is clear: the wrong word at the wrong time in front of the wrong person could end more than your spa day. You reach for a water jug, pour some over your shoulders, and let out a slow, quiet breath. You survived. And somehow, that feels more exhausting than the boiling room did. At some point, a terrible realization sets in. No one is actually bathing, not in the way you understand it. There are no buckets of clean water, no soap, no scrubbing, no rinsing. There is, however, oil. An incredible amount of oil. Olive oil, mostly, sometimes infused with herbs or crushed flowers. Thick, fragrant, golden. It clings to skin like a second, shinier epidermis. You see it poured over shoulders, kneaded into backs, drizzled across thighs like dressing on a very confident salad. A man reclines nearby, arms behind his head, as an attendant rubs oil into his calves with the precision of a sculptor polishing marble. Another bather holds out his arm while someone scrapes his forearm with a strigil, a curved bronze blade used to remove oil, sweat, and whatever else has built up. You try not to stare, but it's like watching a slow, sticky ritual of rebirth, only slightly stickier. At first, you assume it's a pre-bath routine, a sort of warm-up, but then you realize this is the bath. The strigil scrapes, the oil flows, and nothing else happens. A woman glides past, her skin gleaming like wet terracotta. She smells faintly of thyme and iron. She doesn't even pause before lying down on a warmed stone slab. An older man joins her. They begin debating military reforms while alternating oil massages from a shared servant. You're not sure if you're impressed or deeply unsettled. You step cautiously around a shallow basin filled with what you think was once oil, but now looks cloudy. A strigil clinks against its side. A boy dips it in, gives it a quick rinse, and keeps scraping. You start to itch, just watching this. You find a bench. Sit. Try to blend in. A kind-looking attendant approaches and gestures toward a small amphora. Oleum, he offers. You hesitate, nod. He pours a stream of warm oil across your shoulders and begins rubbing it in with brisk efficiency. It feels nice, sort of, like being basted. You wonder if this is how roast chickens feel in the moments before they stop having opinions. When he finishes, he bows slightly and offers you the strigil. You stare at it. You've seen people scrape themselves with it. You've also seen them not clean it in between. You politely decline. He shrugs, unfazed, and walks away to repeat the ritual on someone else. You glance around. The air is thick with heat, murmurs, and particles. Everything feels slightly damp, slightly oily, slightly lived in. There are no drains, no hoses, no running water. You begin to understand why some Roman writers used to complain about bathhouses being filthy. And yet, everyone seems completely fine with it. Proud, even. The oil is seen as therapeutic, cleansing, luxurious. To be coated in it, scraped and perfumed, this is not neglect. This is care. This is self-maintenance, Roman style. Some historians argue that the purpose wasn't cleanliness at all. It was softness. To soften the skin, the body, the soul, to sweat out the bad, to absorb the good, to emerge not purified, but polished. And you do feel different, not cleaner, but smoother, looser. Your body sighs in slow satisfaction. It's weirdly soothing. If you don't think about it too hard, you lean back against the stone, letting your eyes close. A nearby man sneezes. You silently pray he doesn't need to borrow your strigil. Tomorrow you'll wash properly, maybe twice, maybe with fire. But tonight you're Roman. And Romans don't bathe, they oil. You've survived the heat. You've survived the nudity. You've survived a senator's unsolicited monologue on aqueduct design. And now, just as your body begins to sink into an uneasy sort of comfort, just as you start to think, maybe this isn't so bad. Someone hands you a tray, a small wooden tray, communal, uncovered. On it, a medley of food items that all look vaguely familiar and yet completely suspicious. Tiny pastries, wilted greens, some kind of cheese that may or may not be crying, and at the center, a bowl, a small, brown, fragrant bowl. You lean in, instant regret. It smells like low tide, if the tide had died there, and then fermented for a while, in the sun. Someone grins at you. Garum, they say proudly, you must try. Garum, you've heard of it. Ancient Rome's favorite condiment. It's fermented fish sauce, made by stuffing fish guts, blood, and salt into a clay vat, sealing it and letting it mature, under the Mediterranean sun for several months. Then straining it, bottling it, and pouring it on. Everything. You glance down. The little pastry in your hand is already soaked in it. You smile, politely, like a hostage, and take a bite. It hits you all at once. Salt, acid, umami, death. It's not bad exactly. It's just confusing. Your brain is trying to figure out if you're eating food, a marinade, or punishment. Good, yes? Asks the man beside you. He's older, round-bellied, with oil still gleaming in the folds of his skin. The cook said this batch was cured for over a year. You can really taste the anchovy bones. You nod, chewing slowly. You can't taste bones, specifically. But you can definitely feel your stomach writing a strongly worded letter to your brain. Another tray arrives. It holds pickled eggs, boiled dormice rolled in honeyed poppy seeds, and a curious lump of something greenish wrapped in fig leaf. You pass on the dormice. You've already reached your personal limit for surprises today. You make the mistake of asking what the green thing is. A woman leans in. It's a lark tongue pate, she whispers. Very fashionable. You're not sure what's more alarming, the content, or the fact that she said it like it was gossip. Someone pops a fig into your mouth before you can protest. It's sweet, sticky, gritty with seeds. You feel like you've just been fruit punched by a tree. Then another bowl appears. This one's steaming. Stew? Soup? No. Lentils, with garum. Again, you realize, with growing horror, that everything contains garum. One man spoons it into his mouth like it's nectar. Another dips his bread in it, like fondue. You see someone drinking it straight from a cup. Your body is not prepared for this much prehistoric brine. The senator returns. Of course he does. He drops down beside you and shoves a toothpick into a piece of questionable meat. Boar sausage, he says. Left a bit long in the sun. Adds character. You eye the sausage. The sausage eyes you back. You decline. He shrugs. Pops it into his mouth. Begins a long anecdote about vomiting during a Saturnalia feast and how it builds fortitude. You try to keep a neutral expression, but internally, your entire digestive tract is vibrating with concern. And then, to cap it all off, a final communal toast. Small clay cups are passed around. You raise yours cautiously. It smells sweet, fruity, spiced, safe, mulsome, wine mixed with honey. Finally, something you can understand. You sip. It's pleasant, warm, almost makes you forget the garum. Almost. But as you place the cup down, your stomach does a slow, menacing flip. You breathe in deeply. The air smells of oil, salt, wet stone, sweat, and what might be disappointment. Historians love to debate how common food poisoning was in ancient Rome. Some argue the pickling, salting, and fermenting preserved food just fine. Others think everyone walked around mildly poisoned most of the time, bloated, burping, and blaming the gods. You're leaning toward theory number 2. You don't want to be rude, but you also don't want to die in a bathhouse full of strangers and fish sauce. So you excuse yourself, gracefully, calmly, quickly. Your stomach growls ominously. Tomorrow, you'll eat something simple. Dry bread, maybe a grape. But for now, you shuffle toward the latrine chamber, just in case. Because in ancient Rome, one moment you're a guest, and the next, you're a cautionary tale told over lark-tongue pâté. It's finally happened. The fish sauce has declared war. You shuffle down a corridor of echoing stone, clutching your stomach like it might try to escape on its own. A carved tablet points the way. Latrina, the Roman restroom. You follow it. A stone doorway. Cool air. A sudden awareness that privacy is about to become a fond memory. And then you see it. The latrine. A long marble bench. With holes. Lined up side by side like seats at a team meeting you deeply regret attending. No partitions, no doors, just one long shared slab where everything is everybody's business. You hesitate. A cheerful voice beside you says, "First time?" It's a boy, maybe 12, holding a clay jug of water and something that looks like a paintbrush, except it's not a brush, it's a stick. And on the end of the stick is a sponge. Your heart sinks. No, please, not that. The boy grins. "Xylospongium," he says proudly. "Everyone gets a turn." You stare at the sponge on a stick like it just threatened your family. Because this tool is Rome's toilet paper. A communal sponge, dipped in water, wiped, then rinsed, then reused. By everyone. You consider dying, but your intestines insist otherwise. With great reluctance and zero dignity, you take a seat. The stone is cold, hard, and alarmingly shared. A man next to you strikes up a conversation about the price of bricks. Another comments on your sandals. You do your best to respond while focusing on not making eye contact or direct contributions to the soundtrack of the room. And then the boy offers you the sponge. You take it. Slowly. Like someone accepting a cursed object in a horror film. It's wet. It's warm. And it's been through things. You try not to think about how many other people have used this very same sponge in the past hour, day, decade. You don't want to know. You absolutely do not want to know. You glance over at the rinsing bucket. The water is not so much clear as it is historically rich. It's the kind of fluid that probably has stories, and bacteria, and possibly citizenship. You use the sponge, fast, surgical, emotionless. Then rinse it in the communal bucket, trying not to scream internally. The boy nods, pleased. "Very Roman," he says. You do not feel very Roman. You feel like you've committed a crime against yourself. As you exit the latrine, trying not to cry, you realize something strange. No one else seems fazed. To them, this is normal, efficient, economical, a shared part of daily life. The sponge stick is not disgusting. It's civil, thoughtful even, better than leaves, or stones, or nothing. And they're not wrong. In context, this is a marvel of sanitation. But you still can't stop picturing the sponge's journey, the miles it's traveled, the secrets it knows. You ask a passing senator if anyone ever got sick from this practice. He shrugs. Probably. But who can say? People died all the time. From anything. From everything. He's not wrong. You vow never to complain about two-ply again. As you return to the main bath, dazed, humbled, and in urgent need of hand sanitizer, which won't exist for 1,800 years, you reflect on what you've learned. When in Rome, do not use the sponge stick unless absolutely necessary. And even then, you've had enough. You've oiled, you've scraped, you've fermented internally and spiritually, thanks to garum. You've shared a toilet sponge with strangers and stared into the abyss of communal modesty. Now all you want is silence, just a moment of peace, solitude, maybe a nap, maybe just 5 uninterrupted minutes to sit and not learn another horrifying detail about Roman hygiene. A kind-faced bather, seeing your frazzled expression, gestures toward an arched doorway set slightly apart from the bustle. "Tepidarium," he says gently. Very calm. You nod, gratefully, limp toward it like a wounded soldier returning from the front. The moment you step in, you are hit with warm, moist air. The temperature is perfect, not scalding like the caldarium, not icy like the frigidarium. The lighting is soft, filtered through high windows. Mosaics of dolphins and sea nymphs shimmer on the walls. It looks like a sanctuary. You exhale. Finally, a quiet room. And then, "Absurd!" bellows a voice to your left. You flinch. Another voice counters. "Absurder is the man who claims to know what cannot be known." You glance around. A group of men, naked, glistening, and extremely opinionated, are arguing at full volume. One is gesturing with a scroll. Another is stabbing the air with a wine cup. A third is literally pounding the floor to emphasize his point. Philosophers in the quiet room. Of course, you press on, seeking a corner. Maybe there's still a peaceful nook tucked away from the academic thunder. You pass a pair of older women playing knucklebones, a kind of dice game. Their laughter is sharp, triumphant. One slaps the marble so hard the dice bounce into your path. She glares at you until you return them. Farther along, 2 young men are reenacting a dramatic scene from a lost Greek tragedy. Loudly, one collapses to the floor in exaggerated death. The other wails to the ceiling about betrayal, fate, and someone named Theodora. You try another corner. This one holds a small group of senators, surrounded by their slaves, all deep in animated discussion about tax grain distribution. You think. It's hard to be sure, because they keep interrupting each other, then pausing to gesture proudly at their own biceps. In the middle of the room, a man is leading what seems to be a lecture on stoicism, except he keeps contradicting himself and doesn't appear very calm. Someone challenges him. He challenges them back. It turns into a shouting match about destiny, civic duty, and whether or not emotions are technically useful during gladiator games. You sit down, gently, carefully, between a group playing flutes and another debating the ethics of pomegranate imports. You close your eyes. A whisper beside you. "Do you think the soul is made of air or fire?" You don't answer. He leans closer. "Because if it's fire, I think that explains dreams." You still don't answer. He takes this as encouragement. "But if it's air, then maybe dreams are just the soul." Flapping. You open your eyes. He beams. "Marcus," he says, offering his hand. "I think I was a donkey in my last life." You nod. Politely, with the distant gaze of someone separating mind from body. Somewhere, a flute hits a high note. Someone else drops a cup. It shatters. No one reacts. You begin to realize that the Romans don't do quiet. They study quiet. They debate quiet. They dedicate poetry to quiet. But actual physical silence? Absolutely foreign. Even their rest is loud. Their leisure is discussion. Their calm is filled with stomping, shouting, and philosophical one-upmanship delivered at volumes suitable for a naval battle. To them, a quiet room isn't silent. It's simply less noisy. A place where thoughts can fly louder, where ideas echo off the stone walls with pride. In fact, the noise seems to energize them. Romans don't just tolerate chaos. They monologue through it. A bathhouse isn't just for cleansing the body. It's for sharpening the mind, flexing opinions, arguing until one person storms off or passes out from heat stroke. You wonder what would happen if someone actually tried to be quiet in here. Meditate, reflect, just breathe. You try it. You close your eyes. Again. Breathe in olive oil, damp tile, someone's cologne made of crushed garlic. Breathe out anxiety, the memory of the sponge, the senator's thighs. You center yourself, mentally travel far away. A dice clatters beside your foot. You breathe in again. Marcus is back. If I whisper my dreams to olive trees, he murmurs, will they remember me? You open your eyes. You give up. In ancient Rome, the idea of quiet didn't mean no noise. It meant communal harmony through expression. You weren't expected to sit in silence. You were expected to contribute to the conversation, the atmosphere, the civic noise machine that was Rome itself. Silence was unpatriotic, suspicious, maybe even unhealthy. And so you sit. Among the philosophers, the gamblers, the poets, the donkey man, soaking not in steam, but in the hum of a civilization that feared only one thing, being unheard. You've just dried off. Your limbs are loose, your brain is soft-boiled, and your dignity is hanging by a thread that was already frayed back in the communal toilet. Now, you want nothing more than to find a shadowy corner, maybe sip some wine, and pray that no one speaks to you until your spirit returns to your body. Instead, a man built like a statue, the kind that wrestles lions for fun, claps you on the back with the force of a minor earthquake. Venisti ad palestram? He booms. You blink. Sorry? He grins, all teeth. To the palestra, wrestling arena. He points down a corridor lined with torches and what you hope is sweat, not blood. You laugh nervously. No thanks, I'm good. But he's already hooked his arm around your shoulder like your childhood friends who survived a war together. You must join. It is tradition. It is sport. It is manhood. You glance around for an exit, a lifeline, a trap door to the 21st century. Nothing. Before you can form a solid excuse, another man joins, then another. All of them oiled, glistening, flexing with the casual arrogance of men who've never known carbs or doubt. Their bodies are chiseled from marble, or at least from a diet of figs, goat milk, and constant physical confrontation. They lead you through the arch, and then you see it. The arena. Not the Colosseum. This is smaller, more intimate. A training ground. But it's still a stone courtyard surrounded by columns and spectators. Dozens of men and women lounge on benches with grapes, cheese, and wine in hand, watching like it's theater. Which it is. At the center, a sand-filled ring. At the edge, a basket of leather straps and protective, well, not much. Most of it looks like belts without pants. You freeze. The gym bro, whose name turns out to be Tullus, tosses you a thin strip of linen. Your subligaculum, wrestling requires freedom. Freedom. Yes, that's what this is. Freedom from clothing. Freedom from boundaries. Freedom from shame. He strips, effortlessly, confidently, as if he were born mid-flex. The others follow suit. Muscle ripples. Jokes fly. The scent of testosterone and olive oil thickens. You look down at the strip of linen in your hand and realize you have two choices. Leave and offend half of Rome, or strip and enter the ring. You choose option 3. Mentally disassociate and pretend you're in a documentary. You change. Slowly. With the resigned shuffle of someone about to be sacrificed to the gods of abs and aggression. As you step into the sand, the crowd whistles. Not in mockery, in approval. You're exotic. You're new. You're entertainment. Tullus grins. We wrestle like the Greeks. No rules, no strikes, only skill. You nod. You have no skill. The bell clangs. Tullus lunges. You flail. And then, skin, sand, impact. He's got your arm, your leg, your dignity. He's flipping you like a flapjack and pinning you with the ease of someone who does this daily, and possibly in his sleep. You taste sand. Somewhere, someone cheers. Not bad, he laughs as he lets you up. Your shoulder disagrees. Another match begins. This time, two equally matched men. They twist, grapple, breathe like bulls. Their bodies strain, muscles gleam, veins pop. It's not violent. It's almost beautiful. A display of discipline, of art, of unspoken competition. You sit at the edge, panting, dazed, watching as the crowd leans in. They cheer not for brutality, but for form, for honor, for technique. Tullus joins you again. This is how Romans become gods, he says, by facing weakness, by crushing it, by sweating it out. You nod, still half prone in the sand. How many gods have back problems? He laughs loudly. All of them, eventually. He helps you up. Your limbs are jelly. Your pride is bruised. But you also feel alive. Like the bathhouse has cooked you, peeled you, scrubbed you, broken you down to your rawest self, and now rebuilt you in olive oil and sand. Someone hands you wine. You sip. It tastes like victory and mild internal bleeding. A group of young men begins practicing holds nearby. One of them, possibly named Brutus or Maximus or Necias, tries to teach you a simple technique. You fall. Again. He nods approvingly. Very Roman fall, he says. That means something, apparently. As the sun begins to dip behind the columns, you realize the wrestling arena isn't just about strength. It's a mirror. In here, status doesn't matter. Titles don't matter. Even the toga is gone. It's just bodies, skin, breath, struggle. It's democracy through sweat. And strangely, you're no longer embarrassed. You're exhausted. You're sore. You're accepted. No one laughs. No one mocks. Because in the bathhouse, everyone is ridiculous. Everyone is equal. Even the emperor's nephew once slipped in the caldarium and screamed like a goat. No one forgot, but no one judged. It's part of the initiation. You look at Tullus. Tomorrow? He asks. You hesitate, but then, tomorrow? He slaps your back again. You nearly collapse. You came to the Roman baths hoping to relax. You ended up nearly naked, pinned by a stranger, and praised for your falling technique. And somehow, you wouldn't change a thing.